We're joined now by Dr. Adam Hamoway. He's a plastic surgeon, Army veteran from New Jersey who just left Gaza, where he took part in a volunteer mission with the Palestinian American Medical Association. Dr. Hamoway and other volunteer doctors were trapped last week at European Hospital in Khan Yunis due to Israel's military offensive. 20 years ago, in 2004, he saved the life of future Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois after she was struck by a rocket-propelled grenade while serving in the Iraq War, losing both her legs and partial use of her right arm.
And under these circumstances, how important is it for American doctors like you to speak out on this matter?
I think it's essential. I mean, if we're not going to speak out, then who is? We had the advantage of actually the privilege of being able to go there because most people can't go to Gaza. It's limited. Even most Israelis can't go to Gaza. I mean, if you're not serving in their military, you can't get in there. So it's really humanitarian aid workers, physicians and nurses. Journalists aren't allowed in. So the story really isn't getting out except what the Palestinians are bringing out. And that's, again, like I said, being dismissed. So our job is twofold. We're going in there because we could provide care. We're allowed to go in. And then we're also acting as witnesses.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Bobby Jones. And I have the distinct pleasure and honor of interviewing one of the many high-quality candidates for the United States Congress, and that is Dr. Adam Hamoway, who's running in New Jersey. And I'll let him talk about his district in a little bit. But first, I just want to say thank you for coming on and thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you for having me, and it's always an honor.
So you have a very interesting story. I mean, it's something out of a Hollywood movie in a lot of respects. Can you talk a little bit about your background, your family, how you wound up in uniform, doing some of the things you did, and now how you wound up back home serving the community?
All right. So, I grew up in New Jersey, and when I was 19 years old, I joined the New Jersey Army National Guard. Shortly after that, I got an ROTC scholarship, and rather than going the usual route and serving right away, I got an educational delay to go to medical school. And so I ended up entering active duty right after I finished my residency in 2003, which was the height of the Iraq War. So I went into active duty. A few months after that, I got deployed to Iraq as a combat trauma surgeon. And, it was brutal. I mean, it was the height of the war. This is when Fallujah was happening. The U.S., we were receiving our highest rate of casualties during that time. And I got to experience it firsthand, just, seeing our soldiers, Marines, seamen and airmen all getting wounded, seeing the real cost of war on a daily basis. And you've been there. I mean, you know what it's like. This is no joke. You're on the ground, and I saw this every single day. Hopefully you go through a tour and you don't get casualties, you don't get hit. I got to see the worst every single day. They landed the mass casualties. They would come in. I saw the body bags outside the hospital, and then I come home, and you see, we carry these burdens with us, right? We know, these are things that you don't leave behind when you come out. And so after 8 years of active duty, I came back to New Jersey where I grew up and still serve in the, as a surgeon. The Army sent me to be a reconstructive plastic surgeon after I came back from deployment because all the services had a shortage, and we were in this brutal war and we needed to put, our people back together when they came back home. So as soon as I got back from Iraq, they sent me to get trained. And I finished my time doing reconstructive surgery. And this is what I do now. I serve in a trauma center. I have my own independent practice. And I'm I run into these issues every day of providing care because, people don't have insurance, the high cost of healthcare. But I've used my service and my experience in the Army to volunteer all over the world. So part of my commitment really was that once a year, I usually take a trip to a war zone or a disaster area to try to help with my skills. I've been blessed with the ability to take care of a thing, and I've had this experience of war that most people don't have, even if you're a surgeon. And so I've been to Haiti after the earthquake. I've been to Central America. I've been to Sudan. I've been throughout the Middle East. I've been to Syria, Jordan, Turkey, And most recently, I was in Gaza. So over the last 2 years, I've been to Gaza twice and the West Bank twice. And
Can I jump in on that, Doctor?
Yeah.
Real quick, specifically where you just recently traveled. How has that affected your desire to run for Congress? I mean, going to war is definitely one thing, but you got out, you set up some, civilian practice, and then you go back voluntarily. When you see what's going on in the news right now and match those experiences you had, how does that affect you as far as you wanting to run and being determined to?
It is critical to my reason to running. I mean, I never thought ever that I would be running for Congress. It was not part of my plan. It's not something I dreamt about when I was a kid. I'm a doer. I don't talk a lot. You need to be someone who talks when you're in Congress. I just go and I take care of things. I take care of people. But what I saw in Gaza, I know war. I've been there. I've been it multiple times and have experienced it. And this was at another scale. I mean, it really could only be described as a genocide, and it's not like secondhand on TV or social media. I was in the middle of it. I saw civilians targeted every single day that I was there. And in a deliberate fashion, I took care of more children there than in my entire career altogether as a surgeon. Every day, at least half the people that came in were children that were blown apart with the bombs that we are making. And that's what made me come back home and say, listen, being a doctor is one thing, but I experienced something there that most people don't, because, even journalists were not allowed to get in there. And so I was one of the few that saw this firsthand, and I needed to come and speak out as a witness. And so I went to Congress, and since coming back, I've gone to Capitol Hill probably at least 20 times and started advocating, saying, like, this is what we're doing with our tax dollars. This is what we are doing as a country. This is what we are enabling, and this shouldn't be the case. And unfortunately, most of the doors were closed. There were so many members of Congress that didn't even want to hear what I had to say. And then there are so many more that listened that would say, look, we understand that's wrong, but we can't do anything about it, or I can't speak about it. And there was a few, like my current Congresswoman, Bonnie Watson Coleman, who was brave enough to stand up for a ceasefire since day one, who was brave enough to speak out about what's happening and saying, this is not right. And this is what led me to run, is when she announced her retirement. It's like, we need more people like that in Congress, and we need to take it further. It's not enough just to speak out. We need to create an environment where they're not afraid to say something is wrong. This is what I experienced, is like that we know that you're saying is right, but we can't speak up. It's like, why not? You're a Congress member. They're claiming I'm a hero for doing what I did. I did what I had to do because I had the skills and the ability to do it. And you're in Congress and you have an ability to do something, and you should be doing the same thing. And that's what I was pressing them to do. And that's what I intend to do when I go to Congress.
Wow. I mean, very succinctly put. And while we're still on the international thing, and then we're going to go back to Jersey real quick. When you see what's happening right now with the United States, and Iran, what are your initial thoughts as someone who has traveled that region many times and has experience there? Right.
So we've seen this before. This is unfortunately the same story being told over and over again. We come up with an excuse, and then we go to war, and the only one who benefits from that is the defense contractors, the war profiteers. We have a president, Trump, who basically is sending our soldiers and our troops there when he doesn't respect them himself. He himself has disrespected them. He has dodged the draft himself. He does not know what war is like, and hasn't had a hard day in his life, and yet he is willing to send our young generation over there to fight another war that really is not going to make us any safer. We didn't get any safer with Iran or with Iraq or with Afghanistan. And look at our country today. 2 weeks later, we've spent $1 billion a day of our resources. We've lost already troops, on the ground for what? We don't even know why we're there. Is it because we're doing a regime change? Is it because there's nuclear weapons that we were supposedly had taken care of last summer? It's like such a nebulous thing, and no one understands it. And he's the last of anyone to speak up of understanding what war is like. And this is what we need our leaders to be. They need to understand that war, what it really gets us. And I don't know, looking through history, looking at least for the last 50, 60 years, I don't think it's gotten us anywhere. And we've always basically, all we did is lose lives. The billions of dollars that we're spending could be going to our healthcare system, to fixing our roads, to making peace. Like, we are the most powerful country in the history of the world. And rather than being a bully, we could be like sitting the parties down and saying, guys, we need to stop this and we need to come up with a solution. And we're not doing that.
That's a great pivot to your community, New Jersey. You've kind of hinted at this a little bit when you talk about healthcare affordability. You being in the medical profession, what are you seeing as a direct result of action that Congress has taken in the last year when it comes to those services?
So every year it gets more and more difficult for me to take care of my patients. I am fighting this crazy bureaucracy with insurance companies who all they want to do is really delay care and leech money out of the system. They come between the doctors and their patients. Okay. I need to get approvals for CAT scans. I need to get approvals for surgery. Treatments are getting delayed. People are showing up to the emergency room. Either they can't afford insurance at all because the premiums are so high, it's like a second mortgage, or they don't have insurance at all. And this is, we're told we can't afford this. And yet we've paid $30 billion in the last 2 years for this genocide. So we could afford funding that, but we can't afford to take care of our own communities. Out of those $30 billion, that would have meant $100 million to our district here in New Jersey. Think about what we could have done with that. It could help with affordable housing. It could help with, helping with our groceries and subsidizing, our education and our healthcare. This is where we need to be spending our wealth, not to line the pockets of the billionaires and line the pockets of the corporations and the corrupt special interests that are enabling these things to happen.
I think you nailed it. And you have a very unique perspective. And this is why, you need to be in Congress. You see the international connection. You see how the funding is happening. And then you're seeing it in your own neighborhood where it should be going. Let me get you out here on this. If someone had to describe you and what you stand for and what you will do in Congress, what would you say to that?
I would say that they would see me as a principled person who is not afraid to speak up and who will not change his stances. So I'm ready to fight. I've always been ready to fight and speak out for what's right. I was saying that what's happening in Palestine is a genocide for years now, before anyone was speaking up. I was like speaking up against ICE now for almost 20 years. In 2001, after 9/11, I was in the emergency room working on, I was a resident back then, working on victims from 9/11. And I had someone turn over and look at me and blame me for having something to do with this. 9/11 and ICE and all this was formed after the Patriot Act, and they started taking away our rights as U.S. citizens on that day. And no one spoke up because, they created this environment of fear. And now everyone thinks ICE is a new thing that just formed in the last couple of years with Trump. It's just been taken to the extreme. Now it isn't just targeting Black and brown communities. Now it's targeting everyone. It's kidnapping people off the streets. You got masked men and killing, Americans in broad daylight. And it's not making us any safer. How are we safer by what's happening? It's not protecting any borders. It's really just targeting, like I said, Black and brown communities and those that are felt to be a threat to the current status quo.
We have a saying at Veterans for Responsible Leadership, and that's the oath that you take has no expiration date, and you are the living embodiment of that. You are continuing to serve your fellow countrymen. Heck, you're serving the international community by doing the things that you're doing. And I cannot thank you enough for that. Ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at a true American hero. He doesn't want to hear it, but he's doing it. And Dr. Adam, I got to say this. For you to push through and continue to do those things, even when people questioned your loyalty, says a lot about your character. And I thank you for it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me.
No problem. Thank you.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.